guys, here come the dollies. They got fresh sinkers, hot coffee, and the sweetest smile.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the Clubmobile.
Good morning, everybody.
Today we are joined by two very awesome women. They have both had a hand in making the movie The Flight of Jackie Cochran. This morning we are joined by Plowden and Nancy Hasty. Thank you for joining us, ladies.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you for
ladies.
having us. Thank you.
The movie, we got a little sneaky peek, and we
Yes.
have to say that it is absolutely excellent. I really, really enjoyed it. I loved getting to know more about Jackie in such a different and in-depth way, because a lot of the things you read about her sometimes aren't necessarily true. Jess, I want to put it to you first. How did you first learn about Jackie?
Yeah, I was brought this story by our executive producer, Dave King, and he actually introduced me to Nancy. And obviously, Nancy had developed her play, which I do incorporate in the film in, I think, a lovely way, not only just honoring the play itself and all the research that Nancy put into it, but also from a cinematic and artistic perspective. When I first started telling everybody I'm going to put a play into a documentary, they said, "You're crazy." So I think I tried to weave in her story, and there was really nobody else that could help tell me that story other than Nancy and being Jackie. And so that's why I wanted to make sure that that story lived on in this film.
Nancy, what was it for you? Because I feel like Jackie's been with you for a strong percentage of your life at this point.
Yes, I found out about Jackie several years ago when a dear elderly friend told me that Jackie and her husband camped in her backyard of her farm with their RV. Only she called her Amelia, and she said, Amelia's from the Funiac, and I said, no, I don't think so. And it turns out, she said, oh, then it was the other one. So I immediately Googled Jackie Cochran. And the biggest question I had was, why in the world have I not heard of this woman?
Yeah.
And that's when the fascination began, and that's when the research began. And I'd originally planned to write a full character play, but I found out her life was so incredible and so large and so complicated that only really one person could tell it, because you don't have that many actors in the universe to tell her story.
There isn't enough in the pond. There's not enough in the acting pool to bring all of those people to life.
That's right.
I think the one-woman play aspect of it is so fascinating, because in a way I feel like Jackie telling her own story is her accepting her previous self. Jess, what did you find the most interesting about the whole process?
Yeah, I mean, the play itself is what, Nancy, 2 hours, a little over. So, it was cherry picking those stories from her film in order to weave it into her actual life and her life story. And to your point, it's almost like Jackie gets a voice in this to tell story from her side. In documentaries, they have reenactments. And so I kind of use the play to be that reenactment piece in the film. And the story itself is just so riveting. And Nancy performs the play even still to this day. She's out there actively performing. So if it's ever in your town, you definitely have to go see it, because it is the film itself is just a few of maybe
little snippets.
Yes. Yeah, and there's just so much to her story, and it is really interesting to look at her life, not only from childhood to all of her accomplishments, but all the different stories that she had growing up, and all the secrets of her life that she kind of hid from the public eye. And I think the documentary just kind of brings that all to light and kind of looks at her story from a holistic standpoint. And I just really appreciate that about her story. And what Nancy uncovered and researched a blessing for everybody that gets to now know who she is. And that was always such a drumbeat for me, creating the story in its form in film.
Mm.
Yeah. I will say, I remember I texted Winnie after I watched it and I said, I need more of that play. I said,
Yeah,
and
that
I
was
didn't
one of
know
the
at the time,
first things we
I didn't know,
discussed.
Nancy, that you're still performing it. So I will be keeping my eye out. But at the time I said, there's got to be a full recording of it somewhere. I said, I have to see the whole thing because I always find the way Jackie as a person kind of just leaves her former self. It's almost like you're taking off a jacket, right? And you're leaving it on the floor. She takes Bessie off and just abandons who that person was and takes the shards of what she did like about herself and builds this incredibly determined woman. And that is something about Jackie that I will always say that is one of her really great traits, is that she was determined. She let nothing stop her. And I think that's incredible.
Did you guys know going into the play that into the film that she did have a name change?
Yes.
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 Yeah, I think we found that out quite early on when we did our WASP series.
Mhm.
At the beginning of us doing the pod, that we found out that she essentially, like Gabby said, shook off this first persona to make another. And it was quite shocking. It wasn't like it wasn't that you had to dig for it to find this out, but it was still quite, there is still so much to woman. And I feel like it sort of piqued my interest more in her, that she had this such a hard life before, and then she made things easier for herself. And I know a lot of people did not have much good to say about her, but you guys finding the good parts is quite refreshing. What drew you to her specifically, as opposed to the scope of other women throughout the war?
Nancy, I'll let you take that.
Okay. Well, just to piggyback on what Jessica said, what originally drew me to Jackie was her accomplishments. And then right after that, what drew me to her was her many, many falsehoods. Researching her was the most difficult thing I've ever done because seriously, one biography says this, another says that, the newspaper says this, she wrote that. And so I had to construct the play in a way that gave a lot of opportunities for the viewer to take what they wanted, because there's a lot of options. I did get the rights to the book that her niece, Billie Pittman Ayers, wrote, and along with Beth Dees, her co-author. And that's the one that really shed the secrets. In fact, Wikipedia changed their story on Jackie once the book came out. So I had, for the first time, private personal information, which really informed what I was doing with the play and with my portraying Jackie. So that kept me going, because you just can't read all of these different possibilities about a woman without saying, who were you? And it keeps you fascinated. But I love her, and I think her determination, and more than anything, her second grade education, that did not stop her from being in charge of the WASP education of physics and navigation and mathematics. I mean, how did she pull that off? She couldn't do a written test when she became a pilot. She had to do it orally. She had to memorize the book and get up and tell them. She had to get a special permit to be able to do it that way. It's just astounding to me.
It is. Her story is I myself, I went to college and I was going to get my degree in history, and so I've always been a history buff. Thank you, Dad. And I've
It's always
always
the
been
dads, isn't it?
it's always the dads, yeah. And I've always loved history, and what drew me to this story rather than others is, when we were looking at doing a feature film in this area, um we were looking for a story that was local but had a global appeal to it.
Right.
So, Jackie grew up, I mean, let's just say the panhandle of Florida, which is where we are located, and specifically in Walton County is where Definiak Springs is located, and the her parents are buried at the cemetery there, and other family. So it really did check those boxes for me as a historian to really be able to drive a story that about a woman from the area, and learning all her accolades and everything. You talk to people about Jackie Cochran, they're like, who? And then you start going into who she was and what she did, and they go, wow, I haven't seen that before. So, and some people have, going to the Smithsonian was a great opportunity because I got to hear from their experts, how they view Jackie, because it's different than her hometown.
Mm,
There are so many different accounts of her. Like if you read a book
yeah.
on the WASP, there's one version of her. If you read a book on the ATA, there's another version of her. And you find out like the WASP will tell you certain things. The ATA women will tell you another thing. I was eating in the most high class restaurants in London with Jackie Cochran and then getting up in the morning and flying a Spitfire. Whereas the women of the WASP were, Cochran's convent, and it was a completely different version of Jackie as well. And it's just incredible that she kind of molded herself to fit into these different areas so that she could succeed in wherever she stepped foot.
And I think the film and the play, reference really the underlying is that Jackie, no matter really what happens to you in your childhood or your life, the fact that you can kind of come out of that and let
Mm,
it either break you or build you. And I think obviously in Jackie's respect, it built her, to who she was. And I really admire, no matter how people feel about her, I admire, um, her ability to put herself in those rooms with those men, because we're talking about a woman from the 1940s, 50s. Women have a certain role that they played, and for her to kind of break those barriers, not only in sound but in those
yeah.
rooms, and putting herself into those places, you have to ask the question of how did she do that? What happened throughout her life that made her drive that hard
Yeah.
to put
Yeah.
herself with those men. I mean, telling generals what to do, becoming friends with presidents, you're
Right.
just kind of like, what? How did
Right. I
that
was going to
happen?
say, she stood toe to toe with Hap Arnold and President Roosevelt, and she wasn't afraid to give orders. She was in no position to give orders, but she wasn't afraid to give them.
Yeah, and the fact they listened
Yeah.
also has always
They
been
preferred.
incredibly fascinating to me. The
Yeah.
Mhm.
fact that they took her advice and they listened, and
Hap Arnold, especially.
yeah, and they made so many improvements to how things were working. Nancy, how long have you had your show about Jackie? And do you feel like your portrayal of her has changed over the time that you've been performing?
Um, 11 years, and I've performed her around the country. I've performed her in New York a few times, and we're talking maybe now about going back to New York. Um, I would love to see the play go to off Broadway. I've been
Yes.
with
Yeah.
one woman shows before off Broadway.
Yeah.
Um, what I love about Jackie is that I just performed it for this week, and only one person in the audience had heard of her, aside from the man who invited me to come do it, who had seen it before.
Wow.
When I performed it near Panama City a couple of weeks ago, the entire audience, other than my few friends who made the trip, they had never heard of her.
Mhm.
And this is the panhandle of Florida.
Yeah.
It's,
Mhm.
I keep coming back to it's the story. Who has led a life from rags to riches, from letting go of family and yet not letting go of family. She always
Mhm.
took care of them financially, sent them to seminary, the younger ones, or college. She took care of her mother till the end. She brought them all out to California on their own Pullman car when she moved out there. She never publicly connected with them, but she never let go of them. It's just such a story of contradictions. And talking about the generals, Jackie was more at ease and more comfortable with men. I love that she said
Yeah.
women, and referring to herself, are just different kinds of cats.
Mm.
What
Yeah.
do you do?
Yeah.
She, she was not she was not thrilled with most women. Didn't like Levita Cope Hobby, didn't like Nancy Harkness Love, didn't like, she hated Pancho um, Barnes. Chuck Yeager had to sit between the two of them at a dinner to keep them from having a fist fight, he said.
Oh my God.
Jesus.
His wife, Glennis, finally said, I'll never speak to that woman again, and didn't. Chuck
Oh,
stayed
God.
loyal to her. He was one of the few people that visited her when she was at the end of her days. And only 13 people came to her funeral.
I didn't know that.
Wow, that I
Mhm.
didn't know. And you'd
didn't
think
know that.
more because, I mean, the director of the WASP, but
Yeah.
and I mean, she had a beauty company. She really, I feel like she was an acquired taste, right? That's the best way to describe her. She was an acquired taste.
Yeah.
Mhm.
She really wanted President Johnson to give her a cabinet post, and people around him said, nobody gets along with her. You can't. So he didn't, although they were friends.
Yeah, that's one of the things that the Smithsonian said was, coming to Washington, she spent a lot of time there. But in Washington, you have to play the politics. And that was kind of one thing that Jackie didn't really want. She didn't really want to do that. And she wanted things her way. And, she was kind of hard headed in that way. And I think, running for Congress and then not getting that, yeah, it definitely was due to her personality and the way
Yeah.
that she got along with people. But I also kind of go back to a woman in that era putting herself in those places. She probably, the reason that she put herself in those places was because of her hard-headedness, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, we say it a lot that I think her hard-headedness and her desire to kind of stand on her own 2 feet, I think, is a lot of the reason why the WASP weren't included in the WAC bill. They
Yes.
would have had, so those girls would have had such an opportunity had they been included in the WAC bill. And, Jackie said, no, it's, us on our own or nothing. And
Mm.
unfortunately for them, it ended up being nothing.
I was gonna ask on the back of what you just said about her not entering into Congress or politics. Do you both think that that may have played a part in her pulling away from the WASP going for militarization at the beginning rather than in the 70s? Because obviously by this point, by the 70s, she's much older. Do you think initially that would have played a part in her avoiding that situation?
I think Jackie always was traveling with danger on her back because she told so many lies about her upbringing.
Yeah.
Once she came here to Eglin Air Force Base, and President Truman was there, and also a woman from Defuniak, and they were talking about Defuniak, a bunch of generals and the president, and she said, "Well, I wonder how far that is from here." And his secretary said, "Well, you ought to know. You grew up there." And she was just panic stricken.
Yeah.
I lived across the street from that woman's daughter, and she said she just faded into the woodwork. She was always nervous about being found out.
Mm.
Found out that the town considered her promiscuous and a bad element. It's just, to me, another form of the abuse I think Jackie went through as a child because of the way the town treated her. So when that became part of her drive to show the world, put the world on fire. put herself on the map. And it fueled her in a way that, it was her greatest attribute and her worst fault, because she had to trample on people to stand out.
Yeah. Beautifully said. That's exactly what I would say.
Yeah.
Answer the question.
Excellent.
How do you feel like knowing Jackie, I guess I would say intimately right now, you both know her at kind of like an intimate level. Do you feel like you carry pieces of her with you? Do you feel like she's changed you at all or made you look at certain things in a different perspective?
For sure. Yeah. I know for Nancy, definitely. And I'll let her speak to that. But yeah, for me, I even though I am a history buff, I really didn't know much about history and aviation.
Mhm.
And so it's really kind of opened my eyes as to what she contributed to women in aviation. And I just have a greater appreciation for, the the length she went, to informing the WASP and giving those women an opportunity, because I think even though they weren't necessarily militarized, those women that were in the WASP, they probably, that affected their life and the ripple that
Mm.
it
Yes.
created,
Mhm.
almost like the butterfly effect, like that flap of Jackie even existing, um, you know, did so much for women and being like, I can do this in a world where women were very much like, no, 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 go to the kitchen, my dear.
Right.
She gave them a new, I'm sure the women that were in the WASP, they left there and they were different, you know.
Mm.
And so,
Yeah.
and in that same regard, I think it's changed me into really just appreciating um her presence during that time.
Nancy?
As for me, I was performing in New York, and there was an off Broadway show on the other side of the wall where I was performing, and it was called Drunk Shakespeare. And I think the cast and the audience were drinking. And because I was doing a one woman show, the louder they got, the more upset I was getting, until I thought, what would Jackie do?
Mm.
And I just decided I would get softer and bring the audience to me,
Mm.
and damn the torpedoes full speed ahead. And it worked. And from that
Yeah.
performance, I was asked to go to several other venues. Jackie never panicked, never gave up.
Yeah.
I'll take that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. I know Winnie and I have had a very special connection to the WASP, which
Yes.
is, we didn't know much about them. We knew that there were
Mm.
women who flew planes during the war, and it was at the end of the end credits of Masters of the Air, they were showing one of the pilots, and his wife was Josephine Pitts Egan, who was a WASP. And I said to Winnie, she was in the war. I said, she was what was a WASP? Who were the WASP? And we started Googling, and there they were with their Santiago blue suits and their pretty hats. And I said, oh my God. And we ended up doing 3 episodes for Women's History Month on the WASP.
Yep.
And obviously we hold a very special place for the Red Cross and the girls of the Clubmobiles, but the WASP kind of just got in there. And I said, these are like, you feel like they're your girls.
Mm.
These are the girls,
Definitely.
and you want to make sure that people know their story. And that's when we started digging further into Jackie. And then it became like, well, Jackie, Nancy, right? And that was the big thing. I think they just propel you to keep moving forward. Their story is
Mhm.
so
Mm.
strong and so
Yeah.
special
Yeah.
that
Absolutely.
they just keep
And I
pushing you
was
forward.
I was so excited that, Lisa Taylor from the WASP Museum that's in Sweetwater, Texas.
Mhm.
When I flew out there to interview her for the documentary, and just their willingness. I mean, they're really I was very much a cold call, like,
Mm.
hey, I know this is crazy, but I will fly to you, and and I want to interview you, and I want the WASP. There's a good section in the documentary that covers the WASP history,
Mhm.
because to your point, I mean, not a lot of people really know about the WASP, and they have to like
Right.
do their own research. And that was a part that, you know, I wanted people that were watching the documentary to be able to get a overall view of how significant the WASP's contribution to the war was. And it's funny, I think about it, when I made the documentary, I had everything really silent. Well, I didn't put in music till the end. So when I was working with Barry, who composed the entire music soundtrack to the film, I knew in that piece about the Wasp, I wanted it to sound, it has the same melodic notes that we use throughout the film, but I wanted it more in like a military way to just kind of play a role in bringing people into that state, you know, when they're watching it. And I want it to feel patriotic. I want it to feel kind of in a respectful way, not only just in sound and the visuals, but I want it to kind of have this cohesive feel. So you feel like you're, you know, watching a historical documentary within this piece. Because I kind of, at that point, I kind of let Nancy and Jackie's story kind of fall for a minute, and I let the WASP story kind of shine. And I love that Lisa was so willing to let us license you know, some of that footage, you know, which is so great. And I think the more that people see that footage and see what the women went through, it's funny because that track of all that footage, it has like this male voice, and I let it come in and out in the film. But it's just so funny because there's some that are like, they have to do their hair and they have to do their makeup and they have to be lady, but you hear this like male talking about all this stuff that women should be, and you're just kind of like, oh gosh.
There's a similar newsreel here at the Museum of Flight in Seattle, and they have a whole WASP exhibit, and you can watch the Army Navy magazine newsreel, and there's just this voice of, here they are, they're going swimming, proving they still look ladylike under their flight.
Yes,
of course they still look ladylike because they're ladies.
they're
right?
ladies.
At the very end, there's a bit where they all board a plane to go to their first base together after being given their wings by Jackie. And the narrator says, perhaps one day, ladies, you'll be sat with your husband and you will tell him that you flew in the war, but you have to let him speak first.
Yeah.
It's just rude.
Boy.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
boy.
it's just, it's different times, you know? Yeah, it's just different times. And you know, the overall theme of the documentary, I mean, and Nancy and I have talked about this is a woman's story, you know, and this is a woman, and that's why I really do feel honored being a woman and helping create this story, and you know, bring it all to life and bring it kind of in a cohesive piece. And by breaking it up into chapters, I felt like that helped me compartmentalize how I was going through this. Because, you know, we've talked before, and Jackie's story, I could include a million things. You know, the documentary could be an hour, 2 hours long to cover every single thing that she did. But, you know, I think we've all seen the documentaries that should have ended an hour ago, and I just didn't want that feeling when you watched it. I almost wanted to give you so much of a taste and so many pieces of her life to kind of start digging into. And I think that's really important in documentary, is to not just walk away and be like, great, I learned everything, next. You know, I want someone to go, wait, hang on, what was that? There was that thing. Wait, she did the what? You know, she broke the sound barrier. Wait, hang on, when? You know, and so throughout that, I wanted to make sure that the women really stood out in the WASP, and then, you know, Jackie being a woman in that era, what that was like for her, not only in her childhood, because women in the 1900s, I mean, we're just treated differently, you know. And at the end of the day, men write history. And so being with Nancy on this journey, it's that women get to tell her story now, you know. Sit down, man. Let me tell this story.
This one's one for the girls. This one's for the girls.
That's right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Nancy, I'm really interested to know that if you initially had an opinion on Jackie, and has that opinion changed since you got to know her so well?
Yes, constantly. My father lived in the town she lived in when she first got married. I've lived in every place Jackie has lived. I live right now a few blocks from where her parents lived and where her little boy died in the fire. She is part of the panhandle. I'm panhandle. I understand the way she was raised. I understand the values. I understand the why this town turned on her, especially back then. She was having a very flagrant affair with a man 42 years her senior, who was married, and he was a pillar of the community. And he helped her buy this little, they always call it the little shiny red roadster. And she'd ride around town and go shopping at the best dress store in this whole area and lived in an apartment that he owned. So she was someone that they didn't think kindly of. In fact, they were downright mean to her because she was too big for the the experience. So there was that whole part of feeling for her and understanding the frustration and even the rage she had against people who could break the rules because they had money, but she trying to better herself was pretty much punished for it. Then there was the way she treated her family. My mother couldn't stand her. She would say, I don't like anyone that doesn't speak highly of their mother. And have you finished that too yet? So she was determined for me to finish the play. But the fact that she said the things about her mother on really one of the first pages of her autobiography is just shocking. That she was slovenly and she was high pitched and she didn't know how to manage money and she was, just put it right out there.
Yeah.
So I didn't approve of that. A lot of the WASP were terrified of her.
Yeah.
Chuck Yeager was afraid of her when he first met her. There were just so many quirks in her personality. So it depends on which day, which quirk, and where I'm performing. And all of a sudden, I'll have another whole aspect. That's why I'm still doing this.
Yeah.
It's endlessly fascinating.
Yeah.
Just the same question for you. Since the beginning of this process, has your opinion changed on Jackie?
When I first found out about Jackie's story, I'm trying to think where it must be upstairs in my tote, but I had a script of Nancy's play. And when I was given the story, that was kind of the first material that I looked through, and I read it like a book, right? And when I finally went to go and see the play, I was making notes the whole time, and there were certain stories that I thought I was going to include about Jackie, but you know, as I started to develop the story of the film, I realized some of those stories didn't make sense or didn't have a place. And I think overall, at first, I kind of wanted to be like, this is dark and I want it to be this and very emotional. But as I went through it, I was kind of like, but it's in Nancy's play, but as a film, I kind of went this route of, no, I think I want to show a different side of Jackie. I want to show that I want to show her growth as character, all the things that she went through. You think about getting married at 14, having a son, that son subsequently passing away due to a fire. You have to think about, I mean, she was still developing, right, in her brain, and that kind of effect that it has on a woman. I think even just during this process, it was a 3-year process, and I became a mother during that process. So I think I started to look at Jackie's story differently and realize, if, let's just say, my son did pass, how would that change me as a person? And I started to kind of look through it more of a lens of like a psychological standpoint, which is why I found my psychologist to kind of come in and look at her as like a case study, instead of being like, look at all this crazy thing, you know, throwing that kind
Yeah.
of like those like shocking stories at the audience. It was more just like, let's look at you from a mental standpoint. And
Right.
I think it really kind of hits on mental health in pilots. You know, there's a lot of pilots that I've talked to that when they're flying, it's a way for their brain to kind of, while they're doing so much, when you're above the clouds and you are flying, there is a peace.
Mhm.
And I think that's kind of what Jackie was always, why she loved to fly, is because she got to find that peace when she was either going speeds that her brain couldn't keep up with,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
even just, you know, flying from here to there. It's very mental
Mhm.
to fly. And
Mhm.
I think that really plays a huge role into why she loved to fly, and why she, when she got into that cockpit, it was like a aha, I think this is what I was made for, you know.
Yeah. Which is incredible because she got her license on a dare, you know, and the dare was, I dare you, I don't think you could do it in X amount of time.
And she did it in half of that,
And she
didn't
did it in
she?
half
She
the
was
time.
given
Hell hath
what,
no
8 weeks?
right? Hell hath no fury like a woman with a deadline.
Yeah,
And of all people
absolutely
to
though.
challenge her husband, or her future husband at the time,
Future
her
husband,
future
yeah.
husband.
Mhm.
But that's another thing about her, I think, speaks to, she never went by his name. She never went by Floyd
Yeah, she
Odlum's
kept
name.
her
She was
kept
Jackie
her
Cochran. She was Jackie Cochran. In
yeah.
certain situations, she was Jacqueline Odlum, but
Mhm.
Mm.
90% of the time she was Jacqueline Cochran.
Mhm.
And that speaks to, I think, how determined she was to, I'm me, and I'm going to stand on my own 2 feet, and I'm going to do this, and nobody else's name is going to take the credit for what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always found it fascinating that she kept her previous husband's name, even though she changed her name from Bessie
Yeah.
to Jacqueline. I've always found that, I would love to know the thought process behind that specifically, because she wanted to leave her previous self behind, yet kept her previous last name. I don't know
I
if it was a
think
case of it just fit with Jacqueline so well. Jacqueline
I
Cochran,
think it
it
was in one of the
flows
books we
so
read where
perfectly.
she said that it had kind of like it sounded well off, Cochran.
Hmm.
Yeah,
That it
it
just sounded
sounded
well
more.
off, and that's why she kept it. But I can't
I
remember which
agree.
book we read it in. It might have been Spitfires. Might have been
It was,
Spitfires.
yeah, it's been, yeah.
Either that one
It's one of the
or,
three.
yeah, one of the three. But there was something in there where just the name to her sounded well off, so she kept it.
Yeah.
I believe
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And it's funny because, you know, you even just saying, I'd want to ask her, you know, there's so many questions, Nancy, and I would
Yeah.
want to ask her if she was still with us. For me, I feel like keeping the name Cochran could have come from, you know, maybe wanting to still hold on to her past. Um,
Mm.
Or her
you know, from a,
son.
like, from a cycle, yeah, from like a, like, you know, it's almost like
Right.
what Jackie told the press, or things that are written about her, might be different than, you know, the actual psychology around her
Hmm.
choices in life,
Yeah.
which is interesting because
It's very
she
interesting.
wanted to distance herself, but and I know Nancy noted this, but she did still have a place in her heart for her family, even though she felt a certain way. And I
Right.
think that comes
Absolutely.
from, I think that's a trauma response, you
Oh,
know,
for
She
sure.
wasn't as cold as some
Definitely.
people made her out to be.
or
Yeah.
maybe even that she projected herself to the world, you know. I mean, it's
Yeah.
almost, you have to have this hardness about you in order to self-preservate, you know,
Hmm.
your feelings, and not have those feel exposed
Yeah.
by them, right? Because, you know, in the early 1900s, talking about your feelings, that didn't happen.
Who did that?
that
Mm-hmm.
Right.
that wasn't a
Nobody
thing.
sat down and said, "Well, tell me how you feel."
No.
Exactly.
No.
Oh,
Yeah.
the
Nobody did
passing of your
that.
son. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
So I think it's a self-preservation act. You know, and this is all assumptions, but, you know, in talking to psychologists, that's, those things are even though they happened then, those things are still seen in people that go through that type of thing to this day.
Yeah.
So it's a very human response.
Yeah.
I was performing the show in Virginia, and a teenager afterwards, we were having dinner, and she said, I didn't like her. And her father, who was a pilot, said, she was a pilot.
That'll do it.
Found Chuck Yeager easygoing. You know, she was a pilot. But Jackie was, sometimes I feel so tenderhearted towards her. I think about her as a child, that one teacher seeing something in her. I think about her being bullied because she was poor, barefoot, wearing a flour sack. I just, sometimes I want to be her teacher and say, just calm down, you know, just, you don't have to lead with your chin. And sometimes I'm just in absolute admiration and awe of her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was my first opinion of her too, was like, I don't know that I like her very much. And I think it's just because
Yeah.
the first introduction I had to her was the book The Women with Silver Wings, by Dr. Kate Landeck. And I remember reading it, and it truly is the story of the WASP as a whole. And there's a lot on Jackie and there's a lot on Nancy. And I remember going, oh my God, like I just felt my heart kind of bled for Nancy, because I was like, she got edged out. Jackie edged her out. Like Jackie stepped over her, and Nancy would have been just as well equipped to do what Jackie did. But Nancy wasn't as boisterous, and I don't think Nancy was as vocal about it. And that's why Jackie got what she wanted. And my first opinion of Jackie was, not really sure I like her that much.
Yeah.
I got a kind of 50-50 feeling about her. As I read more about the WASP and more about Jackie, I was like, okay, she didn't have it so great, you know? So she built this,
Yeah.
she took shreds of herself and just basically stitched together this entire new person and this entire new life. And I don't think I hate her or dislike, hate is a strong word. I don't think I dislike her as much as I initially did, because, you know, look what she did, look what she created for all these women. So it is, like you said, Nancy, there's a lot of, you can have different emotions about her on different days, and based on where you're reading and what you're looking at, there's definitely a broad spectrum of what is Jackie Cochran.
Yeah, I don't think our opinion started to really change on her until we read Spitfires by Becky Aikman quite recently. And it's me and Gabby and our book club correspondent Sage were all in a group chat together, and we all read it kind of at the same time, and all three of us said, oh, okay, our opinions slowly started to change from, oh my goodness, she stepped over everybody, to, oh, she had to do that.
Right.
And then especially watching this film and watching Nancy literally become her, it gave her more realism in my mind. Seeing someone portray her so well, I thought that it was Jackie. Nancy, that's how good you are at this.
It's like you get to hear, it's like getting to hear Jackie's voice, and it's like, okay, wow. Oh yeah, no, I wanted the whole thing. I was like, I need the entire play. I hope somebody recorded it. I need to see it. I was like, she's brilliant.
Thank you so much.
You are, truly.
You really are,
excellent.
truly.
The second you put that wig on, I was like, that's Jacqueline.
Yeah, if you come back to New York, I will be there. I promise I will be there.
I will be sat right next to her. Like, it's happening.
Thank you.
Fun fact about the wig. Nancy, you mind if I tell this story?
Go ahead.
Okay. So fun fact about the wig. So Nancy, actually, normally she performs it. Well, when I met you, you didn't perform it with a wig. And we were sitting down for lunch one day, and I think I mentioned something like, oh, like, have you maybe thought about a wig? And you were like, actually, I have thought about getting a blonde wig. I want it to be like a 1940s style. I want it to kind of be like a classic look for her. And I was, you know, my millennial self just starts on my phone, just researching. And I literally was at lunch, and I was like, oh, like this one right here, like something like this wig. And she literally goes, Yes, exactly that wig. And you ordered it right there at
Right then
lunch.
and there.
Oh
Yeah.
my
That's
gosh.
amazing.
Yes.
And it's funny because I when she puts on the wig, I mean, she just like
It's
she
just the
she's
yeah.
already her when I didn't see her perform in the without the wig. You
Mhm.
know, I was already
Yeah.
very much believable that this is Jackie in the flesh. But when she put on the wig, and you know, we made sure that she had her hair and makeup done for the made sure it's all in place and all that, and the wig itself, it's an actual like stage wig, so you know
Yeah. Yeah, I
you can
saw
see
that
it's
the piece.
it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's meant to be on stage. And I felt like that we went back and forth of like, should we cut it off,
No.
and then but at the end of the day, it's like the wig is for the performance,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
So it has to be authentically performative.
Yeah.
So that was a story of the wig. It was it was
It adds
discussed
such
and
an
bought.
extra layer.
It
It adds such an extra
does.
layer, and seeing Nancy
Hmm.
become her, it added another level of humanity to Jackie
Yeah.
that
And the
Yeah.
cadence of your
we
voice when you tell her
yeah,
stories,
you
it
sound
just,
Hmm.
like
oh,
her so
wow.
perfectly.
Yeah. Go
Things
on.
that Gabby and I have been talking about, because we've been going through a lot of oral interviews of the WASP recently, and being able to hear these women's voices has added like a whole other layer to our
Oh,
research.
yeah.
So being able to watch this film and to see Nancy as Jackie again, we feel adds another layer of humanity to this woman
Hmm.
who we read about, who
Mm.
a lot of people don't lend the kind of softness and humanity to that Nancy has by portraying her. And like what you have done, Jess, by making this movie about her, is that
Hmm.
when you read about her, you only get the harsh leader, I'm going to step over everybody to get what I want. But
Yeah.
this, I feel, gave her more humanity,
Hmm.
and
Thank
it
That's exactly right.
made you see her as a person, as
Yeah.
opposed to, I wouldn't say a monster. I would
Hmm.
say that
No.
she would run into a room and get what she wanted, and that's how you see her portrayed in other forms of media. Whereas this, it gives her a lot more stuff to dive into.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It kind of gives you the reason why she was the way she was.
Yeah, it definitely gives you that backstory. When I first started thinking about the film, you know, you start like, how do I do this? You know, how do I start it? How do I fit in a play? How do I introduce this character without the audience
Yeah.
going, who the heck is this lady? You know,
Hmm.
I always envision, you know, the TV at the beginning and slowly pushing in, and that's Nancy sitting in the chair, uh, you know, almost like watching herself. But she's in Jackie. And then I really wanted to show Nancy and have the audience get to know who she is first. And then I always, ever since like the first day, and day one, I always wanted to have a transition and show her Nancy as herself. But then how do we go into telling the audience that she's no longer Nancy, she's now Jackie? And I don't know if you guys caught it, but in when she's backstage and she's putting on her attire, there's a moment right when she walks out on stage that the screen turns from color to black and white.
Yeah, I
Yes.
caught that. I
And
thought that was excellent.
I wanted it to be in a cinematic way to like let our audience know, okay, what you just saw is now, you know, the past.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
this is another, we're in another world now.
Yeah.
We're
yeah.
in she is Jackie, right?
Mhm.
And when we filmed the play, so we have filmed the play in its entirety.
And
So
we have
Nancy
it
has
connected.
that. Nancy does have that material. But what we did is we used a local black box theater here, and we actually filmed it over 2 days. So we filmed it we filmed pieces that I knew I wanted to include in the film without an audience. So sometimes, so that way we could get some like cinematic shots of
Yeah.
going around
Right.
her, you know. But then the next day she performed it to a full audience. So I got to get shots of people actually watching the play.
Yeah.
So I wanted, um, from a cinematic standpoint, I wanted the audience to say, wait, hang on, are there people there? Wait, there are people there. Hang on.
Yeah.
Like, you know, how did they get these shots? And that, I wanted it to feel very, how do you film a play? You know, you have these, what, 3 angles, 4 angles that you can shoot
Yeah.
from, but I
Mhm.
needed to do it in a cinematic way that helped
Right.
bring the emotion out. And my director of photography, Mark Little, really, our minds came together in trying to film that. And when he filmed that play, he'll tell you he was just blown away. The first day he was just like, wait, I want to see it all. Just as they were
I
same
want to do
reaction
all of
that you
it.
guys had. Yeah, because
Yeah.
I had Nancy do certain excerpts from the
Mhm.
film because, you know, it was a long day of filming, and and that gave him a new greater perspective on the actual story itself. And then when he got to see it the next day and film it, he was just like, whoa, okay, this is beyond. So that was really exciting. And then you know, sitting down with my editor, Megan Kasabian, you know, we had we had interviews, we had play material to work through, we had historical footage to work through. Every meeting I had with her, I was like, okay, this is the big elephant. How do we do this? We take it one bite at a time. And so, you know, going through that footage and being able to cherry pick the pieces that ended up making the final cut were just, it was grueling, and it was a process, but so necessary. And, you know, the interviews, I think, really helped paint that backstory, and talking to
Definitely.
locals about what it was like in Definiak Springs in the 1900s and what that society was like. And then going to the Smithsonian and the WASP Museum, and then combining all that with a psychological evaluation of Jackie as a whole. I think really, in the end, I'm just really proud of the material that we went through and all
Yeah.
the traveling we did, and you know, bringing it all together. So I'm really proud of my team. Thank you, team.
You should also be
Thank
very
you
proud of
for
yourself because it's
Yes.
excellent. It's wonderful.
Well,
Yes, it
I was
is.
pregnant for pretty much the filming, and then
Oh,
I
I
had
know
my
how
son.
grueling that was.
Yeah. Well, going to Sweetwater and then the Smithsonian, those two flights. The first flight, I was like, oh, this is
Oh.
not bad. And the second flight, I was like, this is terrible. This is uncomfortable.
I moved from England to the States when I was 5 months pregnant with my first, and let me tell you, that's a special kind of hell.
It
To
is. It
do that
is.
long flight when I mean I was only about like 2 minutes pregnant at the time in comparison to the end of it,
Yeah.
but still doing 2 flights like you did, I get it.
Women can do
I understand.
anything.
They can do
Women.
anything.
Yes, they
Absolutely.
can.
I would like to thank both of you for your support for the film and also for my performance. That means a lot to me because I never wanted Jackie to be seen as rough as some people saw her, or if you see her rough, to have some idea why she had been damaged and hurt. So thank you for that.
Of course.
Oh.
You've added this special level of humanity to her that if you read her Wikipedia page, you get a slight taste of it.
Yeah.
But seeing you literally become her, it adds a whole other level of personality to her. She wasn't all, you know, rough and ready for a scrap every 2 minutes. She was damaged, and she was very, I think, not miserable, but I do think she had a lot to work through, and there just wasn't the resources for that
Yeah.
at the
weren't.
time.
The
They were
time,
not.
yeah, the era didn't allow for it, but
Mm-mm.
she gave such great history to women today to look back on and research and dig
Yeah.
through. And she provides a really big step for so many people to look at something that might be daunting or big and say, no, I can do it. One bite at a time. I could do it.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Before we go, Jess, you said you had some news to share about the film.
Yes, Nancy and I have some news. So what's next with the film? Obviously, I'm sure your viewers are going to be like, well, where can I see this?
Give it to me.
Yeah. So yeah, right now we're going to be moving. 2026 is going to be our film festival circuit. So our goal right now is to go to film festivals to show this. We are nominated for a regional Emmy. So we'll be going to that in a couple weeks.
Amazing.
The whole team, we're going down to Hollywood, Florida, and we are going
Almost.
to, yeah. So we will be finding that about that Emmy, but it's an honor to be nominated, right? But
Course, yeah.
our first film festival has come through, and so we will be able to screen it at the Orlando Film Festival, which is exciting. This
So
year,
exciting.
it might be virtual this year, but they will be screening it in 2026 when that falls. So we're really excited about that, and
Yeah,
it's just kind
that'll
of
be
the
exciting,
start.
yeah.
And I encourage your listeners to not only just follow us on social media, it's the Jackie Cochran Film Instagram page, but um, on our website, you can get an exclusive sneak peek. And if you sign up there, you can see it's actually the first 2 minutes of the film. So you can go and see that. At there, and really, I mean, that piece is so helpful for people that are interested in her story, and supporting us to go to that website and to sign up for that sneak peek, because we'll be able to send out emails and keep everybody really in the loop as far as where, if it's coming to your town, or if it's, at this point, Nancy and I have such conviction to make sure that Nancy, I do this all the time. Jackie's story is seen by as many eyes as possible. And so, we have not only just plans for the film festival, we hope it does get picked up. We hope it's available in streaming someday. I'm going to put that out in the universe. But we also want to take it to air shows. So, anybody that's watching that has those connections, we're in a small town here in Northwest Florida. So, we're open to anybody that is inspired by Jackie to help us get her message to everywhere. Yeah. And Nancy, I don't know if you have anything to add.
Just that. Oh, and also the Redfish Film
Oh,
Festival.
yes. Yep.
We've
We're
been
going to be going to
accepted here.
Redfish, which is in Panama City. So we're excited about just the opportunities that are there. And honestly, none of this would be possible without the support of the Sowell Foundation, who really gave us the opportunity to, fund this film and to make it, to for us to travel and get all these interviews and production. I mean, everyone we hired is from this area and from the Panhandle. So we were just really proud to, support our local
Yeah.
filmmakers that can do that and pull this off. And we did it.
Mm.
We pulled it off.
And
And
it's
a shout
great.
out.
It's
Mhm.
brilliant.
It's great. It's
Yes.
so good.
Our followers, our supporters, please guys, go check out the first 2 minutes of the film. Sign up on the website. We'll link your Instagram, we'll link your website as well.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. And we've seen the whole thing. And even at the 2 minute teaser, I was like, give me more. Give me the rest. Give me the rest of it now. And if you have the opportunity to see Nancy perform as Jackie, please go do it. Please, please, because it's a story worth getting the full story.
Absolutely.
And
Thank
I will be in the audience as soon as I can. I promise.
Yeah.
I promise.
Well, Winnie and Gabby, we'll let you guys know. We'll keep you in the loop on all of Nancy's performances. So if you guys
Please
are
do.
close
Yeah.
by,
Please,
or
yes.
somewhere we can access, or if you guys know of a theater in your town, we'd love to bring it. Because I think, you know, I know Nancy and I really want to bring it to the WASP Museum in Sweetwater, but I think it's something that could relate to museums that honor the World War II effort across the
Absolutely.
US, you know,
Yeah,
and
for
it's
sure.
such a powerful story and a woman's story. And I think that is so important right now,
Yes,
in our world.
Most important.
it is.
Yes.
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 Yep.
Well, thank you so much, both of you, for joining us. This has
Thank
been
you.
incredible.
Thank you so much for
what a way
having
to
us.
kick off the weekend, let me tell you.
Thank you.
There you
It's
go.
been wonderful.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
both.
Thank
Yeah.
you,
Thank you, everyone,
everybody.
for listening.
All right.
Bye.